I'm Alessandra Barrett, Senior Content Editor for JOC. I'm at our 2018 TPM conference with Mark Laufer, CEO of Laufer Group International. Great to see you, Mark.
Great to be back. Nice to see you too.
In the past, we've spoken about the culture shift that needs to happen in carriers with all of the consolidation that's happened in the last year or so. Have you seen any promise of cultural shifts that might really bring about the change that we've talked about?
That is a great question, and it's a very interesting topic at this year's TPM. I think that although we have seen a financial consolidation of carriers, there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace and among the carriers to actually what's going on. I don't think that at this point the carriers are thinking in terms of cultural change, and unfortunately that's being reflected in their behavior. What might ultimately happen is that the very act of consolidation itself will force cultural change on the carriers. And by cultural change, I mean essentially managing strategically for the future instead of simply managing to gain market share and try and put as many containers on the vessel at whatever cost. So I think they've got a ways to go, and I don't think that this consolidation has been the watershed event that everybody's been waiting for.
Now, as far as the technology, another thing that everyone's talking about, we need a bit of a cultural shift there as well for any of those platforms to really take hold and real change to happen in the industry. What do you see happening there as far as technology?
So Laufer Group has been doing visibility and creating visibility tools and designing them ourselves for, oh my God, almost 20 years now. We were actually way ahead of the curve on this. And again, I think that the discussion here is a little bit misguided. Technology in and of itself is really not the answer to what plagues the industry. There is this belief, given what we've seen with things like Uber and things like Orbitz and Expedia, which have revolutionized other travel-related industries, that this is going to follow the same model in transportation. I don't believe that that's the case at all. At the end of the day, it's not the will, it's not the resources that the carriers lack. It's one very simple thing, and that's called standards. For this whole technology issue to be as revolutionary as it's promised to be, every piece along the supply chain has to agree on a single set of data standards so they can actually talk to one another. We are as far from that now as we've ever been, and the recent hubbub about blockchain is just another fad. It may actually be the answer, but we've been down this road before, so we're still waiting for that magic elixir.
For something like blockchain to take hold, what would need to happen from your perspective?
It's very simple. Everybody would need to agree that blockchain will be the standard by which they will communicate in the logistics supply chain. And that doesn't just mean the carriers. It means the carriers, it means the ports, it means the terminals, and perhaps the biggest problem with this is it also means the truckers. And the trucking industry in the US is so fragmented and so sick right now that it's almost impossible to imagine that industry coalescing around any kind of standards, no matter how beneficial it is to them.
Over the course of, let's say, 5 years, what change do you think we could achieve? Where do you think we'll be in 5 years?
That's a great question, and there's a big if to that answer. If the industry sees this situation as an inflection point because we're in such a crisis mode, and this crisis of not having enough equipment, not having enough drivers, essentially hiccups in the supply chain, continues to plague the industry and get worse, then I think that it will force all parties to agree on some kind of a data communication standard by which something like blockchain or a competing technology can actually coalesce around so that people can design software to actually answer the real problems that are plaguing the industry. Visibility is not a real problem. I mean, if you think about sitting on a plane, you always have that person who watches the map from the beginning of the flight to the end, but really what you're really interested in is, when will I get there? And even then, if there's no gate available for the plane, it doesn't mean anything. It's the same thing for shippers today. They need to know not only where their container is, but who's got control of it and where the delays are. And we're so far from that at this point.
Thanks for taking time to sit down with me today, Mark.
Always a pleasure.
I've been speaking with Mark Laufer, CEO of Laufer Group International.